You know when you read something that you know it's going to be so good that when you finish it, you just kind of get a little bit lost in your entire life? That's how I feel today. Hello beautiful bookworms, my name is Katarina and welcome to my channel. And today I'm gonna be doing a review for a manga series that I've been wanting to review for a long time, but sadly I haven't finished it on time, so now I'm here. And I am going to use this manga review, this non-spoiler manga review, to fulfill a request that was made to me, which was to actually say if the manga was better than the adaptation and what should be read/watched first. And so, as you probably guessed by the name of this video, the manga that I'm going to be talking about and the subsequently adaptation is going to be Tokyo Ghoul by Sui Shida. And I have to say, firstly, just going into this without even gathering my thoughts, that this is amazing. So for those of you that haven't been on my channel in a while and don't really know my Tokyo Ghoul references and don't know the story, this is a story about this guy, this college kid called Ken Kaneki, and he is basically a bookworm. He is just very secluded to himself. He only has like one friend in his life, and he enjoys reading, and he has a crush on this girl. And basically, the place where he lives, which is Tokyo, but is a different Tokyo from the actual Tokyo of nowadays, is a place filled with ghouls. And what are ghouls? Ghouls are this sort of monstrous fantasy beings that appear to be human, but that have they can only eat human meat. So they are humans' natural predators, and they are graced with something called, well, they have a lot of names, but they are graced with some appendix, let's just say it like that, to their body that actually gives them some sort of relative power, more speed, more strength, sort of stuff like that. And they use that to hunt humans and to eat them because they have to get nourishment, and the only nourishment that they can get is through human flesh. The only thing that they can eat that is part of the human world is coffee. The rest just tastes like utter shit. So in this sort of dystopian kind of terrible world where humans are always fighting ghouls and ghouls are always fighting humans, this kid is just a college kid that likes to read and that has this attraction to this girl. But then, and I am not spoiling you because this is literally the first part of the book and the setting of the story, when he's on a date with her, she reveals herself to be a ghoul and she tries to eat him. Although she fails at that, firstly because he's our main character, so you all know that she's going to fail. And second of all, because something falls on top of her and kills her, like this building that is in construction falls on top of her and kills her. So because he's badly injured from this meeting with this ghoul that tried to eat him, a doctor tries and transplants some of her organs, because they don't know that she's a ghoul, into him. And so he becomes half human and half a ghoul. And this is a story of how he meets other ghouls and how he goes through society and how he tries to live with being half on one world and half on another. And I find it pretty amazing the way that a manga fantasy story, which is kind of what this is, can actually portray a lot about our actual society and what it is to be a human and what it feels like to be preyed upon in so many different ways, and what it feels like to be fair, and what is the fairness of life, and what is the meaning of socializing, and what is the meaning of society, of species, of race. And it deals a lot with racism in a way, because we have two different supposed races or species. It deals a lot about society, contemporary problems, and that's also why I think it's very interesting. But on top of that, it also great English. But as I was saying, on top of that, it also deals with psychological drama in a way, because you have to accept that you're not how you used to be anymore. You have to accept some of your inner problems. And something that I do enjoy in this manga is that everyone has a reason for being who they are and how they are. So they all have some kind of background, they all have some kind of problem that makes them who they are. And you see a cycle of revenge between ghouls and humans, because there's a human kind of organization called the CCG, which is kind of an extermination ghoul organization. And obviously you can see that all of the people that are investigators in that organization are people that have lost something to ghouls. And then you see that some ghouls are attacking that organization because they lost something to that organization. So it kind of explains the cycle of wars and the cycle of revenge and how you have to put a stop to that, and it's not easy. So that's the basic premise of the story, and I really have to say that I obviously went with the biggest expectations ever, because first of all, it's a manga, and I don't believe that I've ever been disappointed by a manga that I've read. And second of all, it's just amazing, and it has such a dark theme, and it's just so freaking amazing, and I love it. So this series is composed by 14 volumes, and then you have 3 light novel volumes that kind of explore a little bit of the past of all of the characters, then a middle point where all of the characters are in the middle point of the story, and then just 6 short stories about secondary characters that interest in the story. And after that, we are having right now a new series that supposedly is a continuation of this first series that has now currently 2 volumes in English, I believe, and is called Tokyo Ghoul Re. And that series is also going to have an anime adaptation. So I put the book down in terms so I can just try and give you a spoiler-free review of the series, the main series, because I haven't started Re yet, and also of the animation, and try and compare it and try to just advise you on what to watch. So let's get into it. So firstly, obviously, I'm going to say that reading the manga is sort of essential, and I'm going to explain to you why that is. So firstly, I myself began by watching the first season of Tokyo Ghoul because I had no idea that this existed, and I do believe that when the first season of animation came out, the English version wasn't available here in Portugal to buy, so I had no real idea that this existed. So I started watching the first season. The animated series is divided into 2 seasons, Tokyo Ghoul and Tokyo Ghoul Route A, which is the second season. And then obviously the re-season that's going to come out probably this year, I believe. And so I started by watching the animation, and the animation was fairly incredible. The special effects were amazing, the colors used were brilliant, and the story had this darker tone that the Japanese voices and all of the soundtrack just made beautiful. And then, for some reason, I started to figure out that this manga actually existed, and so I stopped at the half point that divides the 2 seasons in the animation, and I started buying the manga, and I decided I was going to read the manga and then watch the second adaptation, which I did, and I finished it late last night. So, how do I say this? Let me just gather my thought. So as I started reading, I kind of noticed that throughout fairly 7 volumes, I believe. Yeah, 7 volumes of the manga. It was the same story that appeared in the first season. However, in the manga, I noticed that the details and of the explanation of what were ghouls and how they work and how it was biologically possible that they existed was actually given way more than in the animation, because in the animation the thing that interested was our main character Ken Kaneki and the other ghouls that he knows and the sort of adventures, dark plots that he goes through in order to try and maintain himself as an ethical person that is divided in between 2 races. In the manga, that is also the main plot point of the story, but what you have is a way more specific and detailed explanation of why characters are doing the things that they are. You have a lot more flashbacks, a lot more context, and you have a lot more medical and legal conversation in a way of why ghouls are being hunted in the first place, how the equipment of the investigators is made, and how ghouls are biologically possible, because obviously you can't stand a premise that just tells you ghouls are real. Point. And now we're going to invent something. You can have that, but probably there will be plot holes, which is something that there's not in the manga. And that's what I appreciate about it, because in the animation you can notice some plot holes. And although the animation covers it beautifully with the animation, with the voice actors, and with all of the special effects and all of the darkness of the story, if you're very attentive and you don't let yourself just be wind up in all of that, you understand that are some things that are missing and some things that aren't very well explained as they should, and that you want more. And that's what you have in the manga. So for me personally, and without spoiling you, I would just encourage you to read the manga first, mainly because in the second season of Tokyo Ghoul, which I watched after reading the manga, the characters start having decisions in the animation that has nothing to do with what they decide in the manga series. And what happens is that you don't have an explanation of why the characters are acting this way and what is going on. And you have characters that are together, like in a group, that are separated in the animation for reasons that I don't actually know. And you have some development of some characters that is not associated with the manga. And I'm not saying that the second season was bad, because I didn't think so, but the manga was so profound and so deep that in the parts that relate to the second season of the animation, I was actually sobbing my eyes out. I did cry, because it was so powerful and so intense that in the second half of the manga, you couldn't really contain all of those feelings. And all of the explanations that were given to you and the ways that the characters acted were fairly explained and were just presented to you in a way that you could follow and just immerse yourself in the story and be yourself a part of the story. Whereas in the animation, I did enjoy it because I was watching it after reading the manga, because I watched the first episode of the second animation before reading the manga, and I remember thinking, regarding to one decision that one character made, just so you have context, I remember thinking, why are you doing that exactly? Because that has nothing to do with your character development and your character in general. So why don't you tell me? Also, I have to say that, of course, the animation is still beautiful, and of course that I think that you should watch it because it's a great animation, but I fairly encourage you to read the manga first. The manga is very deep, it packs a punch. The ending, I was so angry at that ending that I actually I didn't throw my book because I couldn't make noise at the time, but I was so angry that I was internally screaming, like, why? And it's a fairly open ending that I then associated that had to do with the fact that the sequel, Tokyo Ghoul Re, was coming out. But at the time, I didn't associate it with it, so yeah, I was fairly angry because it was an open-ended that actually seemed like it didn't tell you anything, in a way, but you can fairly grasp it in the end, what is going on and what happened, and obviously it will encourage you to buy the sequel, obviously, to understand better what happened. But still, I think that although in the animation the flashbacks are beautiful, they are not context enough for what you are seeing, because you are seeing something that was adapted from a major context that you're not seeing. So obviously, if you want to watch or read Tokyo Ghoul, I would recommend for you to read the manga first. I think that you can have access to it online, although obviously I have my physical copies and I bought them. There's 14 volumes, as I told you. You don't need to read the side light novels, but it's kind of context given if you want to explore a little bit more of what happens, which is what I'm doing now. But you don't have to do it. Those are just if you're really immersed in the story. So as I'm saying, I'm not saying that the animation is bad. Actually, I did enjoy it, although in the second season, it wasn't as emotional as the manga, and some of the characters had some decisions that weren't fairly explained and that seemed a little bit out of context and out of character, but I still believe that if you can't read the manga, then you should probably watch it, because firstly, the first season is immensely good, and the second season, although it is not the best season of all time, it is actually a cool end to the story in a way, because obviously the ending of the animation is also open, although not the same as in the manga also, which can be fairly triggering for some people, because it was for me, I have to say. But it was fairly beautiful, and the way that it studied the darkness of the psyche inside of a person, it was fairly amazing. So yeah. So that is all for this video, guys, and I'm sorry that it's very long, but I really wanted to recommend you things in perspective so that you can go read or watch a manga series that I absolutely love and that I am so happy to have finished finally, because I am in love with this series, and Suishida is just a pro on doing this, because Tokyo Ghoul is such a hit, and I understand why it's talked around for everyone to just watch and read. So that is all for today, guys. If you like this video, leave a like or subscribe, and if you've read Tokyo Ghoul or want to read Tokyo Ghoul, just tell me something in the comments down below. And happy readings to you all. Bye!